So welcome to our demonstration on file-based discovery. My name is Steve Cron, and I'm joined with Doug Schulze and Ben Mills, who are part of the Operation Rangers group and experts on file-based discovery. So Doug, it looks like you'll be starting us off with an explanation and a demonstration around file-based discovery. Is this correct?
Yeah, I sure will, Steve. Thank you very much for putting all this together. Ben and I, in our day-to-day jobs, we're dealing with a lot of escalations, customers that are having particular problems, and even helping the business get even more business in helping put our years of experience onto different areas of our product, specifically in the ITOM space. And most recently, we've been seeing a huge uptick in folks that are jumping into the software asset management piece, specifically the professional package, where we do a great job in what Ben's going to dive into around managing those software licenses and entitlements and those bits of things. As we may know, Discovery, our own ServiceNow Discovery, does collect installed software and it does a pretty good job at it. But the one thing that everybody kind of forgets sometimes is that for us to use our installed software probe, that's currently a probe, the software had to be deployed with a standard industry installer, such as an MSI installer for Windows host or RPM or package add for your Unix and Linux types devices. But there's the occasion that many pieces of software just don't get deployed in those methods. They just get pushed out to the systems and they're there to run. And our discovery isn't going to be able to do that. So what we did is, if this is kind of a little bit now call it aged product, but it's been around for a year or so, but it really hasn't gotten the traction. And that's our file-based discovery. The ability to be able to search through command paths, file paths, to be able to identify those important pieces of software that the business needs to account for in their licensing schemes, again, that aren't installed with a standard industry installer. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go through and show you when I started setting this up, because I haven't really messed with this before till within our own lab. We wanted to get a working example of it and some of the things, the hitches and the giddy up, if you may, of the things that I came across that were really unique that I think a lot of our friends out there might be interested in. So that's why we're here today. Everything I found when I started doing this, I tried to find all the information that our customers, our friends out there would have to be able to see these things. So first, obviously, everybody goes to the docs, and we had some great information here around how generally it works and how to configure it at a basic level. And it's nice, but it's the docs page. We know we can only get the basic information in there. But one of the huge things that I came across, and this is to you, Steve, is I went to our Now Learning, our own very own Now Learning. And there in the program you've built for Discovery Extras, you've got this great section on file-based discovery. This is a huge ad for me. It really helped get me moving. You got great videos, great examples of how to manage, maintain this, and keep it moving forward. But you, again, like the docs page, you have to speak to the widest piece of the audience and not really get into those weird corners and nooks and crannies that you can come across in setting up discovery and such. So using this as a guide. So I found this document as well on the community, and it's an old standard document, but it really goes through not only what we have on the docs page, but also has a little bit extra examples here. And when I'm able to put this video up on the community, I'll have this there as an attachment as well. So a lot of great information out there to be able to manage and maintain the file-based discovery and get you rolling in a good direction. Now, to start, the first thing that you'll see within your training, which does a great job at it, is you have to enable plugins. So in the videos and the training, you talk about which plugins. And for that, you've got to go to open a support case with on the height or in the support system, and then they can enable those plugins for you. Remember, file-based discovery is included in your discovery licensing. So it's available to you. It's just not turned on by default. You just have to get it turned on by support.
So what you're saying is there's no an additional cost to
No,
file-based discovery?
not for just on our discovery side. Absolutely not. We can do that every day if you wanted to. Now, once you have these plugins enabled, you're going to go to your instance and you're going to see in the discovery, under discovery definition configuration console, you'll see this new section here called file-based discovery. Now, this is an interesting part because I want to walk you around all the moving pieces in the background of this. So by enabling this, you're going to see some new the features and options of it, primarily of the folders you want to scan, ones you want to ignore, put in exclusion list. And we're going to be focusing on Linux today here. And you're going to determine what exactly you're going to do and what you're going to look at. Here you see we have some out of box, USR, Etsy, those sorts of things. Now, one of the things I do want to bring to note is that you have these common values here. This is one of the first things that tripped me up is when I was kicking off and trying to find my files and discovering them and such, is it wouldn't run every time. And eventually, after poking around, I realized that this out of box says, how often do I want to run this file-based scan? So as you see, we do it monthly, but you have a few different options here. And for the results for our test, we're going to run it every time. But for customers that are out there going to be using this, think about this specifically around how often do you want to collect this information, because obviously it can be resource intensive if you have a lot of paths and a lot of files that you're looking for. So that's the important thing to know. So think about that consideration and how often you run those.
Now, Doug, this actually brings up a good point, because if you look under the Windows one, the default setting on that is to look at all of the files and the program files. So it's looking at C Windows, which is quite a bit. So this could actually take a while to run. If
Absolutely.
So you can actually filter down as to exactly which files you want to, and directories that you want to scan.
Exactly. Absolutely. Now, one of the things about the difference between Unix and Windows, which is a great point, Steve, is that when we do this collection, and we're going to get into the details a little bit here in a minute, but when we do this collection, we actually run the processing of the collection of the identified pieces of software on the host target itself. So we gather everything up and bring it back. Windows, as you just mentioned, could be looking through a lot of places for a lot of things. So what we do is we actually bring that back to the instance and process it on our side. So Unix being much more process friendly, we do it there locally, but on Windows, we bring it back up to do it on our side. So now, when you have this information, now you've got these set up, there are some default things that take place. So if we go to our probes and we look for our files, our Unix file discovery, you'll see this is the probe that actually gets triggered when you define when that happens. So you see the path, we're going to pass this script and then grab all the variables that we found that were defined in the configuration console. And all that information is defined right here in this script. Now, one thing to note is we have a lot of out-of-box software pieces that we look for. In the Unix world, as we see here, you can see them all listed. I wish that would be a related list somewhere so that we can determine what we want to look for, but by default, this is where they're all located. So now we update this through another process, which we're going to go through, but just know that this script is what's actually defining the files that we would be looking for out of box. So here on my host, we're going to be looking for a piece of software called Terraform, and that's under user local bin. So this is the file name I want to capture and define as a piece of software. Now, there's something unique about these things that I came across that's really, really interesting that I want our friends out there to take note of. We do not have the capability to be able to wildcard anything. I have to look specifically in a folder for specifically a file name, such as Terraform v13.5. I unfortunately could not say, just give me everything that says Terraform, asterisk. The system does not deal with it that way. It needs to know the absolute file name that you want the piece of installed software to be caught. In our setup here in our lab, we do have what's referred to as a symlink. Now, for some of those that may not be so familiar with symlinks give you the ability to execute a program by just typing one word that redirects to the actual application. So in this case, if I wanted to execute Terraform, Terraform alone would then execute Terraform version 12.29. So that's what a symlink does. However, the file-based discovery does not like symlinks. So in this case, I would not be able to get the 12.29 as a piece of software through the file-based discovery because of that symlink. There are PRBs open, problems open, so those will be enhanced in future releases. But right now, know that within your file path, you have to define the actual directory it's in and the actual file name itself, and that's at Terraform v13.5. So just take note of that. And enhancements obviously are coming, but this helps you get past a lot of those hitches and the giddy ups. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to go in and define my custom file name.
And you're creating a custom file name because
that's my Terraform. I want to capture this Terraform version 13.5. This piece of software was not installed with a standard industry installer such as RPM. So it's just sitting out there in a folder. So I need to tell the system, hey, go look in user local bin and find Terraform v13.5. And we're going to call that exactly as we just said, Terraform underscore v0.13.5. And obviously platform Unix, and that's all it is. So I just define the file name, what platform it's going under, and then that it's active. Please be careful with this submit, because another little thing I found, a little nugget of gold, is that once you submit, I can't delete this any longer. I don't have the ability, and I've already put in the enhancement to actually delete that record, and there's no way to do it naturally out of the box configuration. So as you add new file names, make sure they're absolute. Obviously, you can define whether or not they're actively being searched, but just know that I just cannot get rid of that record. So now I have my file in place, and now I have to go back to the configuration console because I know I have to use specific file paths, and I want to define those in there. One thing I found is I tried to determine, like, my path is user local bin, and I've got user there. Want to just keep going, but it doesn't work that way. It has to be it stays within that directory. Probably most likely to help save your target systems, because go everything off user, and every directory that can be south of it can be really resource intensive. So I'm sure they put this in there as a bit of a safety check. And there's our user local bin that I'm going to add to my path. So now this will be included in my setup. Now, if we go back to that probe parameter, we can quickly see, if I look for Terraform, we see it's not in there. So it's not being checked. So this is the next little nugget I found, again, because I wanted to run it, but it wasn't capturing anything. And I came back here and I'm like, well, I don't see it. What happened to it? And that's where working with some of my developer friends said, oh, you have to run an actual scheduled job to be able to update that record. And if we go to system definitions, and we go file, and here, this scheduled job, it runs every hour. And what that does, it rebuilds the Windows and the Unix extensions, what we just added for Terraform version 13.5. So if you're trying to test this out and you're like, it's not running, where is it? Well, the scheduled job probably hasn't run. So you want to either execute this right now in your testing, or if it's fine for you to wait an hour, go grab a coffee. That's up to your decision. So I like executing it now because I want to get my work done. So now that we've done that, we can go back to our probe parameter, and there's our Terraform. As we see, it popped right in there. And one thing you can manually add to this, but follow the process, because I tried manually adding to it and it didn't work, because I quickly learned that we put this new line character right here. So I forgot to put that. So use the custom file names to add those files that you want. And then in your configuration console, make sure that you put in the path that it's located at.
And just to ask, ask an obvious question, which I should have asked earlier. The reason you're creating the custom file names is because they're not part of our library?
That is correct. They're not part of that out of box whitelist of software that some developers said, hey, these are the most common ones that we most likely would come across.
And that library is part of the content data service?
No, that's different than the content data service Ben will talk about in the software asset side. For our discovery side, all we have is that whitelist in these pro parameters. Right. So these may be updated. I don't know what their frequency of updates are, but you can just trust that. Just manage your software locally, and that will probably get the best impact for you.
I see. So these are the probes that are going out during the exploration phase and gathering the software that it's looking for.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. Okay. Now, so I understand what this probe is going to do. It's going to run out there and look through my file directory that I determined in my configuration console. I put my custom file name of what it should catch, that Terraform, and now I'm going to run Discovery and Discover now. Now, what's going to be interesting is this actually works a lot like our application dependency discovery enhanced, the ADME. And what that is, it's for a little bit of background for those of us that know Discovery, is our ADME probe actually leaves a script behind to help catch transient connections, those TCP connections from applications that may just turn on once a day and then shut back off again. So we can catch those and build those application relationships. And on the next discovery, we go collect the results and process it, of course. This works exactly the same way, at least on the Unix side. We're going to trigger, we've told it to go do our file-based discovery. And what it's going to do is actually leave a script behind to be able to discover those paths. So as we see our input here, here's our script that was run. You'll see the status is now started. So it's left this script behind. It's currently parsing the file directories, the few that we have, especially our user local bin, to find our Terraform file. So I don't have it yet. It's sitting still out there on the target, waiting to be run again. So we're going to give it a second here, which I'm sure it's fast enough. This is only one file. And we're going to go back and we're going to rediscover this system.
So basically what you're saying is the first run puts the file down on the system to collect the data. The second run of discovery then pulls back the results.
That's absolutely correct. Because that was one of the things that I was new guy trying to do this. I'm like, well, where it said started, but where's my file? And you learn like, oh, I got to go back and get it again. And this is also a good point to remember. Remember, I talked about the frequency of how often you want this to run. Before I learned about the frequency, I said, okay, you're started. Run it again. I collected it. It's not there. Darn it. And then I ran it again and it didn't run the file-based discovery the second time, or let me say the third time of discovering the system. And I was like, what's going on here? I got to run it every time as I'm doing my testing and such.
Well, while you're talking about little catches, the one that threw me was you cannot run file-based discovery on the mid server that's actually doing the file-based discovery.
Oh, really?
Correct. Yeah. So it has to be on a separate system, and that one threw me for a while. And then I had to add a second mid server just to run it against, and then it worked just fine.
All right. So now we have our input, and there's all of our file names, including our Terraform 13.5. So now we have our software. Now, well, we don't have our software just yet. What we have are unidentified file sets. So now you'll see of just from that one discovery, it found all these different pieces of software out of our whitelist, including our added Terraform 13.5. So it's not ready yet. So Discovery's doing its part. It dropped it off into the unidentified file set. And from our side of things as Discovery admin, now we swivel the chair and look to our software asset manager and say, go ahead and take it from here.
Where's the unidentified file set? Where is that located? Is that software asset?
Yes, it's a software asset. All right, so there's our file right there. And we'll take a look at that record. Really, we don't have a product or publisher. All we've got is the file name and the size of it. And then we say, all right, here you go, Software Asset Manager. Take it from here.
Well, I'm Ben Mills. I'm on the Operations Rangers team, and I specialize in software asset management. So now that Discovery has done its job and identified the file, it's time for Sam to kick in. So I want to talk about a couple of the use cases that Sam has for this data. There's the license compliance side, in which case what will happen is the file that was discovered is going to be checked against content data services, right? It's going to use the file name, the file size, and the file version to make a match in content data and then normalize that file into the software installation table so that it can be consumed by SAM Pro to do reconciliation.
And that content data service library is something that ServiceNow manages and has all sorts of models, publishers, what other type of information is it holding?
Absolutely. Your content data services holds things like the product definitions, discovery maps, upgrade, downgrade rights, software lifecycle information. That is all managed by ServiceNow, and it's consistently being updated, and updates are pushed out to customers on a weekly basis. Excellent question. Yes, that is packaged with SAM Pro.
Cool.
So fantastic. So yes, that's the one use case from a license compliance standpoint. But there's another use case that software asset managers have with this type of data, which is helping other stakeholders within an organization like enterprise architecture or InfoSec identify, hey, what's installed in the environment? Is it approved? Is it not approved? And what actions do we need to take? For the purposes of today, we are going to be going through that second use case. Terraform is where we are going to treat it as an in-house built application. And our goal is to make sure that we get it to populate on the software install table. So first step, let's take a look at Terraform. So here we go. Here it is. As of right now, there is no software installation. Let's take a look at this record here. Yep, we have no publisher mapped to this file. There's no product mapped to this file because it's in-house built. It isn't in content data services. So what we're going to do first is we are going to create a custom product that we can relate to this unidentified file set so we can get it to show up on the software installation table. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to custom products and we're going to create a custom product. So the Terraform, and we'll just check, but the Terraform publisher does not exist. Nope. So we're going to create a new company. We're going to name that Terraform, and we're going to submit. Then we're going to call this Terraform version 13 as the product. This is going to be a not licensable product. We are going to treat this as an in-house built application, and we are going to say that this is going to be used for configuration management purposes. And we're going to submit. Now we have our custom software product. So the next step for the software asset manager is to identify the custom file normalization rules, which is another name for your unidentified file sets. Let's open up the file set. And let's input our custom product. So Terraform B13. Fantastic. We are going to update that. Great.
And Ben, I noticed on, can you open that record one more time? Absolutely. This kind of goes to maybe something you want to talk about a little bit later, but you have that option of excluding from the content service. So this is a custom file, custom application, but then this can be added later to the content data service library?
Absolutely. So that's an excellent question. So let's talk about exclude from content service. So you're absolutely right. If this is a file that ServiceNow feels like should be added to the library, and this isn't checked, what's going to happen is ServiceNow is going to see that that we've created a custom product for this file. They're going to make a decision as to whether or not, hey, we have enough of these to whereas we want to include it into our content library, and then moving forward, when somebody adds Terraform, it'll be a part of content data services. For customers who don't want their information sent to ServiceNow to be added to the content library, that's what this checkbox is for, right? So if this is a proprietary application, for instance, right, we don't want this data getting sent back to ServiceNow. This is where we would exclude from content services, and it'll only work via normalization would work in your instance only. Excellent question. So now that we have mapped our publisher and product to our unidentified file set, we are going to kick off discovery again. So now what we're going to do is we're going to kick off discovery again. So that way we can have the file go through the normalization rule that we set up. We're going to go into the CI, and we are going to discover now. We want to monitor what's in our unidentified file sets. So we're going to go to custom file normalization rules. Here we see Terraform. It's an unidentified file set. So the software asset manager would choose it. And when you come to this screen, what you're going to see is these two fields are going to be empty. The reason why this is an unidentified file set is because there is no publisher or product that we were able to match against this file name. So in order to get the product to populate here, we had to create a custom product. We can do that by going to custom products, create new, and it's here where you can create your publisher and your product. You can classify it as child, driver, licensable or not licensable, patch or unknown. Because we're going to treat this as an in-house built application, we chose not licensable. And we're going to classify Terraform as a configuration management product, which is what we have here. Once we've created our custom software product, we are going to go back to our unidentified file set. We're going to open up our target file, and we're going to populate this record with our created publisher and product. Note down here, we have this checkbox for exclude from content service. So anytime we can't match a file signature to a file, ServiceNow grabs that data. And if it makes sense, ServiceNow will add that to the content data services and push that down to customers. You notice as a SAM Pro customer, you do get content data services packaged with the SAM Pro features. While that library is updated consistently, customers will receive updates on a weekly basis. So, you know, for circumstances where a file signature isn't found and you create a custom one, when ServiceNow adds it to the library, it'll get pushed down to you the week later. Or on the other hand, if you have a proprietary application that you need to normalize and you don't want ServiceNow to have that information, that's what this checkbox would be used for. Now that we've created our custom product and we've associated it to our file, now we are ready to rediscover the CI where Terraform is installed. Now, 2 discoveries are going to be required. One discovery is going to be used to drop the file off, and the second one is going to be to pick it back up. It's going to be that second discovery that the mappings that we created here are going to be picked up, and our installation record is going to be created for us to now manage. So in this case, I went to the Linux server because this was a Linux server, and we found our CI, and we scrolled down under related links, and we chose to discover now. We did this once, so the record can drop off, so the file can drop off. We let that process. Then we came back into this record again and executed another discover now, where this time the file was picked back up. Now that Discovery is run twice, let's take a look at our Terraform installation. We can see that we have Terraform, which is the file name. It was an identified file set. However, now that we've created our mappings, we've actually created a record on the software installation table. So let's go there. So this is the software installation for Terraform version 13. Here's the installed on host. And now we're able to manage this installation in our environment. This is now reportable to enterprise architecture and InfoSec, so we can make a decision as to whether or not Terraform v13 is an approved or unapproved installation in this environment.